This is my version of the old-fashioned caramel cake recipe. It's 3 layers of yellow cake that I coated in homemade caramel sauce. I have this version, and I also have a version where I kind of like whip the caramel into like a frosting type of thing. Now take a look at the caramel that I made. I'm telling you now, it's not easy, and it's definitely going to take a while to make, but it's worth it. I'm just proud of the silky smooth and velvet texture. I started making the caramel by melting down 1.5 cups of unsalted butter and 3 cups of white granulated sugar with a pinch of salt and 2 quarts of whole milk, almond, and vanilla extract. Whisk everything to combine, and I'm working everything over medium-low heat. Please keep in mind that it's so many different variations of making caramel. Some like it with powdered sugar, some make it with brown sugar, some make it with egg whites. Let's just pay attention to the most important parts here. That is, do not have your heat too high when making this. Continue to whisk and don't walk away from it. And have a thermometer, a candy thermometer. Keep cooking it until it reaches a temperature of 235 to 240 degrees Fahrenheit. That's when you have reached the softball stage and it's done. And after about an hour and 30 minutes of stirring, this is what you get. Hey, slow and steady wins the race. Then I removed it from the pot. I added it to a separate bowl, and I let it cool down a lot, at least for about 20 minutes or so. Also, it's a better idea to bake the cakes first, then make the caramel. And to start my cake, I'm adding 1.5 cups of softened room temperature unsalted butter to my mixer, along with 3 cups of sugar. I like to whip this on high for about 10 minutes straight. This is the best way to start off any cake, in my opinion. This whips so much air into it, and that's what gives us a lighter and fluffier cake, which we all want. And don't forget to scrape the sides of the bowl. And I'm adding a little bit of vanilla extract to this, and I'm using cake flour for this recipe. Pro tip, always use a straight edge to level off the top of the measuring cup when you're measuring out flour. And for this cake, I'm using the start with dry, end with dry method. So I'm gonna add my flour first, mix that in, add my wet ingredients, mix that in, and look at the mess I made. But y'all get the idea. I'm alternating between the flour and the milk little by little until it's all mixed in. I used 1 cup of milk for this recipe, and I used about 5 eggs, and I added those in one at a time. And this full recipe can be found at uniqueeats.net. Be careful not to overmix, and the batter should be thick like this when you're done. Then I folded in a heaping tablespoon of sour cream by hand. Then I have 3 round 9-inch cake pans that I'm gonna lightly grease with some butter, and I'm gonna coat it with some of the cake flour. This is to ensure that you can release the cakes from the pan once they're done. Now, I've seen some people use a scale to get an even amount of batter into each pan. I'm just going to add the same amount of scoops and call it a day. I smoothed everything out, gave it a few taps on the counter. And cakes this size only take about 20 to 25 minutes to bake. And I like to slice the domes off the tops of the cake. It'll just prevent your layers from sliding. It works for me. And it's not like you're cutting away a lot of the cake. See, it's just a thin little piece of cake that you're cutting off the top. You can snack on that. I added a little bit of caramel to the turn